Hey, what's going on? Sub here. Working on some changes to the studio, so stay tuned. I'll walk those through on Twitter. But more importantly, wanted to talk a little bit about today's update. Season 2 dropped in Warzone and Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and it's going about as well as expected. Some stuff is working good, some stuff is not. But I wanted to make this as a follow-up to a video I did about a week ago, where I talked about the server problems and some of the information that was revealed in a newspaper article about the situation at Call of Duty, specifically how their servers are handled and how their servers are not being handled necessarily by Microsoft. Right, the Call of Duty is currently, I believe, hosted on the Google servers. Google, what is it called? Google the Space or something. Google Cloud is the name of their server stack. And parts of it, former, I believe to be Warzone 1 era and possibly before, actually hosted on AWS, so Amazon's version of it. And so, Microsoft being a competitor to both of those in the space, it seems very strange. And I'll put a link to this video down below in case you missed it and wanted to catch up. But the other part they talked about is how the development tools for Call of Duty are not on the same server setup as the live game, right? So when a developer goes to work on something, they don't log into Google Cloud. They log into their own private homebrew server setup to work on their stuff. And that is problematic. And so I want to focus on that today because it's something that most people don't understand how this works and why it's problematic. All right. And this came up in some of the comments. So I wanted to just kind of address this issue directly. Now, before we get into it, like, how do you know? How do you know that this is true? Well, a company that I used to work for went through the same process. We were on a completely homebrew server system, dedicated servers, privately owned. And at one point we transitioned to AWS. And so there was a period of time in which we were, on our own servers, and then during that time and during the a good chunk of the transition period, the tools that we had, the development space we worked in, was not the same as our production space that our customers used, and so we ran into the same problems people are running into, with Call of Duty, like today, right? Today, for example, this tweet hits from Call of Duty Updates, says we're aware that the change to buy station locations on Urzikstan did not go live with today's update. So, how is that possible? Why is this a thing? So here's what's going on. Basically, what happens is when you have a developer, right, they are creating a system that will go, they're creating tools, patches, fixes, new products, and then they have to plug that into the existing system that they have, the live system for customers to use. And so the best analogy that I can give, and is going to go over some people's heads, but hopefully some people understand, is think about when you buy a hairdryer or an electronic, like an appliance here in America, it comes with a certain plug, right? If you go to Europe, that plug doesn't fit the wall. The sockets are different. And the reason is that Europe provides more voltage than America does. America runs on 110 for the most part. Europe runs on 240. Okay? So what that means is that if you take a 110 appliance and you plug it into the 240 appliance, it doesn't work, right? It'll explode and bad things happen. Fire's bad. So what they do is they make the devices able to work on both voltages, right? They say it'll work at home and it'll work when you travel abroad, right? It'll handle both. Most appliances nowadays do that. However, you still have the problem with the plug. The plug isn't going to fit, even though it'll work, the plug doesn't fit. And so you have to buy an adapter to make the American appliance fit the wall socket in Europe. When you have a development system separate from your live environment, there are inevitably going to be small differences in how the servers are configured, how much load they get, all kinds of issues, coding issues specific to making things work on the live servers versus on your development servers. Okay, a lot of times it's super minor. It's not a big thing. You create an adapter, you make it so it's designed to work on both systems. You create a little adapter, it plugs in both spaces, everything works great. However, because it's not one-to-one, because it's not an exact match, an exact copy, what often happens is you end up with little issues that crop up that actually prevent it from working, and you don't know that it won't work until you get there and you brought the wrong adapter. You didn't get the right adapter because that place you're going to is slightly different than everywhere else. Europe, if you look at travel adapters, there are like 15 different possible plugs that you can get. So the reality is, in development, because it's not an exact one-to-one, what happens is the patch, the fix, the thing you're working on lives in this little tiny supposed clone of the live game. And in that process, your people are trying to make it so that it'll work in both places. All right. And there's a couple different stages. I've talked about this in other videos. But the reality is you're kind of guessing a little bit. And so ultimately what they'll do is they'll put all of these things together, and this is what we're experiencing today, is they have everything together into one big package that's going to go out to the live server. And once it goes out, you discover what's not working. And it manifests itself in a couple of different ways. One is it just doesn't do anything, right? So the patch, for example, in this case, the buy station patch, right? Whatever the change of locations, whatever they did is that's not compatible. Like it's not plugging in. And so that upload failed. Okay. And what people don't, another aside that people don't quite get is that when you do development like this, go through the patch notes, and every single bug fix is going to be its own test that was created in its own development environment, right? Isolated from everything else so they could fix that. And then they're trying to combine, I think it's 61 fixes, not including new things, not including changes, 61 bug fixes. And they're trying to all put them together into one package to send out to everybody. The problem is, because they're going to have limited ability to all be tested together, they're also going to have no ability to test them on the live environment prior to sending them live. What you end up with is a scenario where intended patches either don't work, they somehow get deleted in the process of it, right? So you get two different code bases being merged together, and one overrides the other and erases the fix. All right, that happens a lot. And because, again, the stuff isn't able to be tested well, and certainly when you have this number of fixes, it's very, very difficult to track where these problems arise. All right, in the time frame we're talking about. Okay, this patch was probably put together a week ago, if that, and they're trying to shove all these fixes out the door as quickly as possible. And because it's not a one-to-one with the live environment, they're not on the same server system, they probably don't have a good idea of what's going to work and what's not. The assumption is some stuff isn't going to go live. And this is where what I talked about in the previous video comes into criticalness of they have to get everything into one space. The tools, the environments, they all have to be together, and they all have to be on the same server environment that the live product is. All right, it has to just be a partition of the live environment, because the way it's working now, it doesn't work, right? We get this every single season for years. And the reality is because they're having to guess what's going to work when they get to Europe and what's not, right? No one knows. And so as a result, we get this hodgepodge of fixes don't work. They don't work as well as expected. Some of them don't seem to show up at all, right? They've been overridden in the main code base that went live. And so the hope is that their plan through the rest of season 2 and into season 3 is to be moving away from this environment that they've created for themselves. And there's been a lot of chatter in the patch notes and in that realm that hopefully that this might be true. They might actually be consolidating everything, moving everything away from, the current state of our servers into a better environment, both for the users, us, and for the developers. And we can alleviate this going forward. But we don't know what their plan is. They're not sharing the details. And so we don't really, we're kind of stuck in this limbo of like, hopefully they're going to make this better. But that's what's going on. That's why we get a lot of stuff they said they fixed that's not fixed. That's why a lot of stuff that they said they're going to change or improve doesn't get changed. And hopefully we see this alleviated in the future. But if you're wondering today, if you're sitting here wondering, why didn't this thing go live? Why isn't this working? This is why. All right. That's what I got for you. Questions, disagree, whatever, drop in the comments below. I'll also link my previous video down there so you can catch up on that if you haven't seen it. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one.